Hello.
Hey, Simon.
Hey, Simon. It's Skylar. How you doing?
Simon.
Hello, Simon.
What's up, Simon?
Hello.
How you doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Hey,
Simon.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Simon.
Hi, my name is Simon Brooks, and I am the host of Conversations with Storytellers, a podcast of wisdom, thoughts, and folk and fairy tales, a meeting with professional storytellers. Each storyteller shares their thoughts on our profession and gems of wisdom, and sometimes a story or two. I am glad that you're here. What can I say about Megan Wells? Well, she's not an elder, that's for sure. I met her for the first time at the National Storytelling Conference in 2016 in Kansas, Missouri. She was receiving her Circle of Excellence Award, as was Janice Del Negro. Looking at the photos from the booklet from 2016, we all looked a lot younger back then. I ended up in a hotel room with her, with a bunch of other people, I have to say. They were swapping stories. She told a tale, a personal story that blew me away. I cannot remember the story, but I remember the experience, and it was powerful. I thought at the time that she was a teller of personal narratives, but discovered afterwards her work is steeped deeply in myth, legend, and folklore, and literary telling. She tells stories written by Ray Bradbury with his permission, and Bram Stoker. I think he's dead, so she doesn't like his permission, but anyway. This was a powerful interview with some very insightful and surprising answers. Please enjoy the conversation with Megan Wells.
Megan Wells, thank you so much for being part of my podcast. I'm very excited to have you here. I have long admired you from a distance.
Thank you.
I first heard you tell a story, just one story, and it was a personal narrative story, in a hotel room, which was packed with people at the National Storytelling
I remember
Convention. Right, that was the first time I saw you, and
Oh my
I
gosh,
can't remember the story.
it was pretty personal. It was a pretty big risk for me. So
And
your first meeting with me was more on the intimate.
yes,
Yeah,
with a room full of people.
with a room
I
full of
don't know,
people.
15, 20 people in the room,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, yeah. And I think my daughter was
She
there and
was.
played her ukulele, which was a big risk for her too.
Yeah, it was night, and she must have been, what, 15?
Yeah, 15, right?
Something like that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
There.
I loved your story. I
Thank you.
absolutely adored your story,
Thank you.
and the power and the conviction with which you told it.
Thank you.
And then working with you on the Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Festival this summer, and hearing you tell there, it was like, I have to have you on my podcast. No ifs, buts, or maybes.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that you wanted to
Indubitably.
do this. Sorry?
Indubitably.
Indubitably. Yes, indubitably. So what was it like growing up?
What was it like growing up?
Little Megan Wells.
I have 3 older brothers, so it was a lot like that. So I didn't really understand myself as a girl
Okay.
till I started to change a little bit. Well, Mom was always trying to remind me I was a girl. That was
Right.
really important to her, that I was a girl.
Uh-huh.
And that was okay. I knew how to do that for her. She'd put me in dresses and all of that. And I could go, okay, great. That's what girls do. Get this off. I want to get on my bike. So I think that was my saving grace, living in nature. I really lived in nature. I was in suburbs, Des Plaines suburbs, but this is 1960 through 69, 70. So I grew up in trees and riding on streets and skating on creeks and following the haunted railroad tracks and,
Nice.
swing sets at midnight. And, I could climb out my window and run down the alleyway. So when I read Ray Bradbury what year did I read Ray Bradbury? I think here in America, we get that somewhere around 5th or 6th grade.
Okay.
Maybe. He understood my childhood. He really understood my childhood. So I really connect with him.
Yeah, one of the first science fiction stories, for want of a better word, was The Pedestrian.
Mm.
And I was just in awe.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
that. I mean, what is it, like 2 pages?
Yeah, right. Right.
And it was the whole world was built in those 2 pages, and you knew exactly what he was talking about. It was
Totally.
just amazing.
Totally. Yeah. Awe is that's the right word for it.
I think so.
Yeah. And there are times when he goes on too much. Not everything that Ray Bradbury did is awe, but
a lot of it's good.
Like there's so much awe because he did so much. He just got better and better and better and better and better and better and better.
And he was versatile too.
Yes, he was versatile. I agree.
Which I liked because Halloween, the Halloween tree.
Yes, beautiful.
It's one of my favorite stories. It's such a good story. Are there storytellers in your family? I mean, other than your brothers going, she did it, we didn't.
Yeah. My dad was Swedish and very stoic. And so he'd be very quiet at the table. He had a problem with alcohol. So when he drank, he got louder. Jokes was his thing. About once a month, we'd get a joke at the dinner table, and he would have well rehearsed it. They're usually long form jokes, and he'd just kind of be like, "I've got another one," and we'd all be like, "Oh, okay, here we go." And he'd get a shake in his voice, and then he'd tell his joke.
So that was a big deal for him.
It was a very big deal for him. Very introverted, shy man. He started out as he worked for 2 companies, and the first company was probably like 6 months before he landed in what became Chase Supply Company. One company his whole life, and worked his way up through that company. So he was an inventory boy. Well, that's when he fell in love with my mother. So he was in the back in the inventory, heating and refrigeration supply warehouse. So the counterman would say, "Johnny, go get me." And Johnny would go in the back and come back fast.
Because Johnny is a good Swedish name.
Yeah, it is a good Swedish name. Johnny Peterson. Johnny Peterson. So he then became the counterman and was fantastic at it. He loved it. But there was some pressure in the household, in the marriage. Mom kind of wanted him to wear a suit. "You've been in this company so long, you should be wearing a suit now." So he got pushed up into vice president of something, or sales and marketing. Okay. My introverted father.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he hated it.
I bet. Yeah, sales is hard.
Oh. So
sales
he went
really
to Dale Carnegie School, that Dale Carnegie class, how to win friends, influence people. And he'd have to make speeches, and then he'd make his speech, and he'd always have a really good joke. That's it.
So the alcohol was that to help him with his speeches, or was that just
help him with his speeches? I think he did Toastmasters. I think he did Toastmasters too. Mom would just talk personal. She always kind of wanted to get you at the counter when, how are you feeling? This is how I'm feeling. So there were no natural storytellers.
So not even like family stories?
No,
wow.
Not even family stories.
Wow.
I don't know if that's alcoholism. I actually think that's probably alcoholism. Now that we're talking this out loud, never really thought about it that way, but I think that's alcoholism. There's so much you can't talk about. And my dad was the son of an alcoholic who was the son of a brutal alcoholic. So in Sweden, they're not talking much. So that generation came over, had kids. They weren't talking much. And so then the alcoholism. And he was quite brutal that 3 generations back. Yeah, I think the alcoholic household is definitely a no talk rule.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm going to back up a bit. So there was no storytelling in your life.
There wasn't.
And you got an MFA from the Illinois State University, and you got a BUMPFA. You got a BFA in theatre at Illinois Western University. Now, did they come? Well, they obviously didn't come one after the other.
They did pretty much come one after the other.
Did?
Yeah, I got my BFA. I went to Chicago for a year, and then came back and went to the next school next door. So Illinois Wesleyan is south, and then Illinois State is probably about 20 miles north. And I got my master's degree in theater. So I was in that neck of the woods for about 7 years.
Wow. Now, have you ever moved away from Chicago area?
No, I've never moved. There was always
something there.
There was always mom and dad, and then marriage and my own kids, and then my mom and dad dying, and now my kids. I'm finishing my kids, so I'm this is my nest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is my nest.
And you got into acting.
I did.
And I've seen some of those early pictures with your long, wavy blonde hair.
Yes, long,
very actressy.
Yes, very actressy. Yes, very theatrical. Yes, yes. Well, theater gave me a place to manage the alcoholism at home.
Really? How did that work then?
Yeah, I didn't really see it till a long time later. I went, holy cats! It saved my frickin' life.
The theater did.
The theater did. The first play I was in was The Miracle Worker, and I was cast as the mother. Uh-huh. And I was inside a very difficult story with a girl who couldn't speak. And, right, I'm the mother, and trying to hold that and love her and protect her. And then there's this Annie Sullivan character who loves her enough to push her out. And I mean, the whole thing was just this drama playing out a lot of the material that I had unconsciously inside of me. I was gobsmacked. So that was that. That was that theater until 30. Yeah, until 30. Nonstop. Theater.
And you also directed when you were in theater as well.
I did. I loved directing. Loved it.
So
yeah,
do you like being in control?
No, I like pulling people into their highest and best.
Oh.
So I guess that would go more in an influencer category, right?
I don't know.
To sort of suss out what's in there and encourage and love people into taking risks.
That was an influencer, though. That would be more of, I mean, there's too much compassion.
Yeah. I don't know
for an influencer.
Yeah. I don't know what that's.
I can't think of the word. It's like way back in my head, and it's not coming forward.
Yeah. So collaboration. It was a collaboration for me, right? And then
you do that. So hang on. So you're also I'm going to be jumping around a bit. I think with this particular conversation that we're be having here, because there are some things that are leading to others. So you also do life coaching, and you're a facilitator.
I am. I absolutely am.
So that is also pulling out the best person.
Yeah.
So how do you get into that?
I had to handle the alcoholism, right? Not my own, my dad's.
Right.
So I, unfortunately, at 15, I suffered a pretty bad perpetration. And I had a couple of years of being perpetrated really bad by really toxic masculine. So I was really, really wounded. And so I ended up, someone invited me to take a look at this thing called Adult Children of Alcoholics. Mm-hmm. What? And I remember I got the pamphlet, and I read the pamphlet, and I literally, Simon, looked around my little studio because I thought they were all watching.
Wow.
It's like, they know. How do they know? I just read every single secret of my personality in this pamphlet and realized that I was not alone, that I was made by my circumstances to be protective in particular ways.
That must have felt frightening and amazing at the same time.
Absolutely, in equal measure. And I'm an introvert like my father. So I got myself to go and sit quiet in those 12-step meetings for a year, and then finally started to be able to talk a little bit about it.
Because they are 12-step meetings.
They are 12-step meetings. Yeah. So I was in 12-step seriously for years, just digging down into the wounds and pulling up the wounds. And then learning that whatever is troublesome out there is really only because it's troubling me in here. When it's not troubling me in here, it doesn't trouble me out there. I can see
World
it
is a
and
big
look at it
mirror.
and understand it, right? It's all a mirror, right? People try to solve their problems by fixing what's outside there. And it just,
Sometimes it's fun to do that,
yeah.
but the real work is on the
The
inside.
real work is on the inside. Yeah. So I did
And
that
it's like
for years.
onions as well. You kind
Yeah.
of like,
Peel,
oh my
peel,
gosh,
peel.
I figured it out. And then it's like, oh,
Figured
no,
it
there's
out.
another layer underneath.
Another layer.
And then, oh, I figured, no, oh crap, there's another
Yeah.
one.
Another layer. Another layer. So then that led me into, I got a couple of certificates in emotional intelligence, uncoupling, conscious uncoupling. And just all of a sudden, next thing you know, people were just kind of calling me for couples work. So I put out my shingle as a coach because it's really expensive to go back to school to get another master's degree.
Yes.
And I am more of a coach than a counselor. Because
you could also get one, a massage therapy thing, because isn't it, the letters are very similar, aren't they?
I love that. That's great. Nobody has to know.
No, right? You
Right?
just say like life coach, and then those letters underneath.
And those
people go,
letters.
oh, they're certified for this.
Yeah. But I adore helping people reframe their pain. I absolutely adore it. I feel utterly useful, and it gives me hope for the world.
I bet. Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of healing to be done.
A lot of healing to be done.
There always has been, but I think it's been, it's like that. Well, it's like I can relate to it as eczema, right? The waste that I have in my body doesn't go out in its normal way, so it comes out through my skin.
Yes.
Right? As eczema.
Yes.
And I think that's what's happening to America right now.
Yes.
And a lot of other countries too. That waste is now no longer under the skin; it's like on the surface, and there's a lot of healing. It's not that the healing never had to be done before; it's just it's apparent now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
So you were a life coach and facilitator before getting into storytelling?
No, the life coaching finally came out of the storytelling. I became a storyteller out of theater. I was doing theater in Chicago professionally. And then, long story short, that was the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
So my friends were dying left and right.
Right.
All around me. And one of my friends got actually kicked out of his apartment because of his AIDS.
Oh, jeez.
And he was set to live with another mutual acquaintance, and she got scared. God bless her. She just got scared. She said, Tom, I can't do it.
Well,
So I was like, well, I can. For God's sake, yes. So he lived with me. And honest to God, Simon, he had a vision, a dream that was like a vision, where he dreamed himself inside these huge waves, lost control. The voice says to him, lean into the wave. And in the dream, he leans into the wave, and he's absolutely lifted into this crystalline bubble of peace and calm. And he tells me this that morning in the bathroom. I'm getting ready to go for work. He comes in, he sits down, he tells me this. And he's like, wow, that was a pretty good dream. I'm like,
yeah.
I think that's a vision. I think that goes in the vision category. Write it down. He's like, nah, I'll never forget it. So I'm like, I'm going to write it down for you. So I wrote it down for him, and the AIDS really got bad. And he was quite a courageous hero. He went and did theater. Samuel Beckett's Endgame.
Oh.
And he did it for a year. He toured it with a company called One World. And then when he was in his last stages, quarantined in a room in a hospital, he reached a real anxiety point. And I wanted to come, and he wouldn't let me come see him. He said, no, your job is to remember me as I was. You will not have this image in your head. And I'm like, I have this image in my head. Just hearing your voice, I have this image. And anyway, I sent that dream then to his sister. and she read his dream back to him.
Wow.
And he lifted into that bubble. He leaned into his AIDS, leaned into his dying, and went out like a bodhisattva. And honest to God, Simon, I was absolutely seared by it. So I was telling people, wait a minute, you have to tell people what happens to you or your dreams, because you can't carry your own. You forget your own. You don't know what's important. So you have to have loved ones, and you tell them, and they hold it for you, and they give it back to you when you need it. I had no idea that this was called storytelling. So I ended up at National. A friend of mine
as an audience participant.
As an audience, you gotta come see this thing. It's called storytelling. Yeah, whatever. Okay.
I'm Swedish. I don't. Martin?
Yes, that was it. Find stories you love and tell them. Oh my God, walking like general's orders right from the start. I feel so blessed. Beautiful man. And
he paints as well, doesn't he?
Yes, he paints as well.
I've seen some of his paintings. I follow him on Facebook, or followed him on Facebook. I don't do much Facebook anymore. So when you went to National, which was 25 years ago?
Yeah, about 25, maybe 26 years. I can't remember the exact year.
Okay. So what was the transition like between actress and storyteller?
Full of bumps.
Yeah?
Yeah, because there were two things really going on. One was I had to relocus my energy, right? Because an actor's goal is to draw the audience up into the story on the stage, right? To keep the balls all going up here, right? So you're sort of watched,
right? It's a participation. It's a viewer sport.
A viewer sport.
Yeah.
And so I had to reorient that then to putting the story in the audience's head. And so that's a big arc. I think that took me about 7 years to do that. So that was one thing, a long practice of slowly attuning the locus and the language.
So you had to unlearn.
I had to unlearn. Yeah, unlearn and learn a whole bunch of new things. And at the time I was doing it, storytelling had was coming up in America, up from Ray Hicks and the librarians in New York, kind of simultaneously.
And
so
like Elizabeth Ellis and Gail Ross, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming at that point, because we're in the 80s. Are we in the 80s or not?
Yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Late 80s. So for a theatrical woman, I cut my teeth on the Trojan War and Psyche and Eros. I went straight into the Greek myths, the Greek epics.
Wow.
I went straight into the Greek epics. That's where I wanted to be. And so that community was a little like, you're supposed to stand with your hands in your pockets and not move them much. And I was like, how do I do that?
Screw that.
So I did. I actually did. I followed their advice. I did.
You did what you were told?
I did what I was told because I loved it so much. So for the next 2 years, I told only with word, standing very still, only with word, and it was the best bad thing that could have happened to me.
Oh, I bet.
It forced me out, just only into the word. And then slowly then characterization got to come back. Then theater got to come back through the characters and the characters' voices and their feelings and their arc. And
it's fascinating because so many storytellers that I've met, the way that they just fell upon it and just they were taken over by it. And for you, it was similar, but your whole process was very different because you had to break the bones to reset them.
Yeah, I had to break the bones.
And then you had to like learn, the power of the word from a storyteller's point of view as opposed to an actor's
right.
point of view.
That's right. I didn't have to learn how to characterize, which is what many storytellers are trying to learn, how to actually honestly be possessed by character.
Right.
And that I had in spades.
Right.
But I had to grow. I had to grow the narrative.
Was that a hard road for you to take?
It was. It was. It was really.
For me, that doesn't seem easy at all.
It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't, because I had a lot of well-meaning people who did not understand that thing that Megan was doing, And I'm big and intense, obviously. I mean, I'm just big and intense. So I'm a little much when I come into a room anyway, right? So I just didn't fit for a long time, and I couldn't leave it. I absolutely couldn't leave it.
Isn't it funny how storytelling does that to us?
Oh my God, I know.
It's like a fishing line that you just can't. It's like it's not a catch and release hook.
No, it's not a catch and release hook at all. Yeah.
So you went straight into these Greek myths.
I did. Crazy.
Yeah, but then you then I look at your list of stuff that you've done.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is not through the male lens point of view, it's from the female point of view, through the female lens.
Yes.
So when you told the story of the Trojan War, did you right off the bat start telling it from the point of view of Helen?
No.
Or was that something that you came to?
It's interesting. I did. Actually, it was an assignment from Janice Del Negro, so I can't take full credit for it.
Nice.
Yeah, she saw me in a storytelling concert. She saw that I wasn't fitting in, and she said to me, I could either hate you or befriend you. So I decided to befriend you.
I love that.
I was like, please. So she said, I think you need to do Helen of Troy. I said, I hate Helen of Troy. And she said, exactly. I was mad. I was really mad. I was mad at the way she was treated, because it's a perfect mirror for our society's sort of splitting of the feminine. It's either it's either virginal or a whore. Virgin whore, virgin whore, virgin whore. It's just and
it does that throughout the Greek myth.
It does.
It's like she's a virgin, she's a whore. She's a virgin, she's a whore.
Totally. So it's perfect for me.
Yeah.
So I had to then, I'm a research nerd. I mean, I put on my glasses and my sweaters with and I just read. And then I found all these little missing pieces. And then I was able to go, she's actually a woman.
Funny that.
So I tell it as a narrator, and I do the men just as much as I do the women. But I think what I've done is I've restored Helen. Rather than her being an icon or a projection, I've actually made her a three-dimensional human equal to the men.
Wow. How hard was that whole process?
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was like really hard. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, oh God, this is hard. Yeah. And it's not, well, when I first did it, the first times I performed it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's the Trojan War.
And now you've got it down to 1 hour and 22 minutes or so.
1 hour and 22 minutes. Yeah, and I can go longer if people want, but mostly,
there's a whole bunch of stuff of yours I want to see. And you also do the story of Scheherazade, of course, because Scheherazade is another one of those.
Yeah.
She's not just a bookend for a whole collection of stories. She's actually a freaking monster of a woman when
absolutely
to take on the monster of a man.
She totally did. And you know what? Here's what I love about Scheherazade for me. Mm-hmm. Is that she actually didn't judge him. She saw the wounded man deep within him.
Right.
And so she stayed in there, not suffering as a victim, but also not the witch looking
Right.
for a way to bring him down. She actually moved into her healer, and she really legitimately healed him through story with wicked sense of humor.
Yes.
And just a love of blood. And I mean, just like, she's
right?
just like, she must have had a lot of brothers.
Yeah. And what I think's funny with you is well, not funny, but ironic, is that you had 3 brothers and then you had 3 daughters.
I only have 2 daughters.
Oh, only 2?
I only have 2 daughters. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Because Facebook says you have 3. Which
Well,
just proves how wrong Facebook can be.
Fix it.
And
I do have other daughters. They're not blood.
maybe that's what. Maybe somebody put.
Maybe Facebook misinterpreted my.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom has an extra son.
Yeah, see.
Yeah. Which is my best mate Billy.
That's fantastic. I love that.
And you also, so the other way, so these are your longest, because you do literary adaptations, long form pieces, and Ray Bradbury. And so Trojan War is obviously one of your long form pieces with the Helen of Troy. And Scheherazade is also.
Yeah, long form. Well, that can sort of, as you know, you can sort of customize and pop in and pop out and pop in and pop out as long as it needs to be or as short as it needs to be.
Because of those frame stories,
Because those frame stories. Didn't you just do one? Where did I hear you do one?
I don't know. I can't tell you that.
Did you just do it the other night at Janice's?
Maybe.
Didn't you do a Scheherazade?
No, I mentioned her, but I didn't do a Scheherazade.
Oh, okay. All right.
I told, it was that little hunchback.
Yeah, that's right.
The story that I told, but I didn't tell the whole, the frame and all that kind of stuff. I just said, we all know about Scheherazade. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Because it was a bunch of storytellers.
Yeah.
That was a fun meeting.
Oh, the best.
I'm going to have to come back to that again.
Yes.
And then the literary stuff, you've got The Wizard of Oz and
Dracula, which is about to come out now because it is October.
Yeah, you've already got a gig ready, lined up.
Yes, all lined up. We're working on it. We're going to have to get the event combo going soon.
No. Do you adopt the persona of Dracula, or
it is a character in the story that must come through the teller? Yes.
But
what point of view do you tell that?
What point of view do you tell that story from?
The narrator.
Male or female lens?
Both.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely both. Actually, I've actually, as I'm saying this out loud, I've actually gotten rid of the narrator now. In the last 2 years, I finally got rid of the narrator, and the characters do it entirely without any narration now.
Oh, I like that.
It took so long, but each piece is told out of their point of view, which includes the exposition you need to keep moving the plot along. So the characters just take over from each other. Then Van Helsing tells this piece, and Renfield pops in for a moment, and Mina starts us all off, and Jonathan and Dracula has his whole piece. And so that was, I've never done anything like that before, but I've done it for a long time, Dracula.
Right.
So these pieces, these big pieces, well, even the small ones take time, don't they? I mean, you know.
Well, yeah, sometimes they do. Sometimes you'll find a story that just like, it's like the alien. It just jumps in and takes you over.
Yeah.
It's like, you could go and perform on a main stage having heard it once and do a cracking job.
Yeah.
No one will know that you ever, this is the first time you've told it, because the story is just, you're perfectly in tune to receive it, and you got it, and you know it, and boom.
Yes.
So with the Dracula story, I've seen pictures of you wearing that outfit with a high collar. Did you have that made specially for that?
No.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't. Crazy. I made a Nordstrom salesperson's day. I was going through the gowns. I knew I needed something opera and elegant that could be both masculine or feminine.
Right, that's a hard thing to find.
This is a very hard thing to find.
In a gown?
In a gown. And so I was kind of wandering around. It was all, bridesmaid. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to have to wear black pants and a white shirt and give this idea up. And she came around, she said, what? And and she went, where? So she came back.
You could hear her toes curl.
I totally could. She came back with this dress. It's a Natomi. I think it's a Natomi. I'd have to look it up. I think it's a Natomi. Just try this on. It's the only one I have. We just took it, and I zipped that thing on. It was just like, Dracula.
It totally is. It's very Dracula.
It's very Dracula. And then it's very feminine. It all depends on the body gesture. Whoever is possessing me at the time, the outfit works. So, but I think I might have to change in Zoom. I don't think it'll work in the Zoom platform. Because you need that 3/4 length. Yeah, it's very high stage. That's very high stage. And this is much more face to face, nose to nose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting time that we live in with all this technology and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you also tell folk and fairy tales, right? Because you do go into schools.
I do. My bread and butter.
You go into libraries.
I do. Yeah, libraries actually are, I'm surviving because of the libraries right now.
Really?
Yeah, I have so much library work.
And is that all virtual?
It's all Zoom Live.
Wow.
And I prefer it to the recordings. That's just me, and it may change. But for now, I think that our audiences need just to know that it's live, that you're out there.
Yeah.
And
I've done a few recordings, and I look back at them and go, good grief, it looks like I just got out of bed.
Yeah, it's harder.
And it's
harder.
Yeah, it is.
You have to imagine. You have to really imagine that audience out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do. It's a hard one. So what do you like most? I mean, is there a favorite form that you like? Do you like your long form literary stories?
No, I like it all.
You like it all?
I absolutely like it all. I just feel so blessed by every form. And to be able to move around in them, like the fairy tales and folk, fairy tales push the edge of the creative improvisational response to the audience. And then that comes right over into the literary.
Yeah.
So then the literary stiffness breaks down. But the literary perfection and precision of cinematic image then goes right back over into the folk tales. And all of a sudden you know exactly where you are because you can see it. So all the forms inform each other.
I like that.
So I love moving around.
That's really cool. Yeah, I don't do too much in the way of literary stories. I do the monkey's paw.
Yeah.
Most of the literary stuff is Halloween stuff.
Yeah, right? Totally.
Yeah. Robert Louis Stevenson's The Body Snatchers, whatever it's called. What does a story need to draw you in and make you think, I want to tell that story?
Well, okay, first off, there is Rafe Martin's voice forever planted in my head, grown tall as a sequoia tree now. Find stories you love and tell them. So if I don't find something in it that I love, then I know it's not mine right now. And sometimes it can feel like anger. When I'm reading something, it really makes me mad, and then I know that I love it. I'm mad because I love it, and I want it to be cared for. So if I have some sort of a strong response of some kind to it, then I grab it up. And then oftentimes it'll just be people will let me know what they need, and then, you need moons and stars. Okay, here I go. Right. And
but you still find the stories that you love.
I still find what I love. If I don't love it, I can't. Well, you know what? We can tell stuff that we don't love, but it's more like a museum piece. Oh, here's this really cool story. It's not really mine.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Here, you take it.
Right.
I
don't want it.
Not mine, but you might need it. Here it is. There's just a little, that's okay too. You don't have to, be madly, crazily in love with them all, but
right.
You know the difference when you're hearing a tell when they're in that.
It's true. And kids are the biggest They'll start if you're telling a story that you love, they're right there with you.
Yeah.
And if you're telling a story that is a bit meh,
Yeah.
I mean, I like it, but I'm
Yeah.
not in love with it.
Yeah.
Then you start to see the nudging and the poking.
Totally. That's great. I love that. Meh. That's totally it right there. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. But so you've also done work with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. That was really an amazing process. We were talking about folktales and literary. So you have to look at folktale and the precision of music. So Chicago Symphony Orchestra is among the most precise orchestras currently playing on the planet. It's all by note, by rhythm, by the lineage of experience of conductors. It's folklore, it's history, all of that is all put into this precision.
So you think that other symphony orchestras aren't as precise as the Chicago?
Yeah, I would say when I was working, I would have been able to pop off for you the 5 that were considered the best orchestras in the world.
Huh. I've never thought of that before.
Because of their devotion to precision. And so their goal, because of Yo-Yo Ma said, this will die if we don't bring our children in. Mm-hmm. So this particular project was, we want to bring them in when they're babies, 2 to 5. We want to bring them in 2 to 5 years old, so that it's in their soup. And then we'll pick them up at 5 and we'll put them over to this program. From here, we'll take care of them from 5. We'll get them in an instrument right here on 5. Well, they're going to pick an instrument that they heard in the 3 Bears. By the time they're 5, they're going to be like, I want to play that. That's the 3 Bears, right? So then they go on from that. So this particular project was 3 to 5 year olds, 2 to 5 year olds. And so at that point, I was coming from audience connection, make it up as you go, improv with these kids, because you have to be right on the improvisational dime with children.
Yeah.
Children
that young. Yeah.
God, the meh factor is, so that's where I was, right? And then here's the orchestra, play the notes. So I had to back all the way back into, it's the same words every time we do this performance.
So that's your theatre coming back there.
Then my theater came back.
Wow. And
but still my storyteller was there, because emotionally I had a great range of how, depending on where the kids were. So, and then I just kind of kept pushing at that edge a little bit, and for good or for bad.
That's really cool. So you got to meet Yo-Yo Ma.
I did. I got to do The Ugly Duckling. I wrote The Ugly Duckling. I wrote them all those pieces. And then John Weber, a brilliant, what's the word when somebody, a brilliant arranger.
Okay.
He would say, we're going to use Copland's piece for this. We're going to use Grieg's Hall of the Mountain King for this. He would just pick all these pieces from classical music. And so they were, each one, Simon, was like a little Peter and the Wolf.
Right.
They were a little Peter and Wolf. So Yo-Yo Ma was going to play The Ugly Duckling. So then I created the piece. And always I created the pieces so that the 5 musicians, we got it down to 5 musicians, because to manage, that's what the kids could manage, 5 instruments and a storyteller. So then the musicians were actually wearing goose hats and quacking and becoming characters. So they were really, really pushed. And it was good for them.
Did they enjoy that?
They loved it.
Yeah, I bet they did, because
they totally loved it.
It's not something that they would normally do.
Yeah, they totally loved it.
And connecting with children is
Yeah.
Unless you're not a children's person, but if you're,
Yeah.
it's one of the best things to do. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. A wonderful experience.
So you also do the story of Hamilton.
Yes. Elizabeth Hamilton,
Elizabeth
from the Mrs. point of view, because, there's a lot about how does a woman find her way to stay. And in the Hamilton era, in the age, there was less options for a woman to ever leave.
Right.
So that is a very interesting and important wisdom for our age to learn about. How does that all work? So again, I got mad. I saw the musical Hamilton. I got mad because I don't think that Manuel, who is brilliant, and it's gobsmacked, but I don't believe that he handled the feminine well.
So you were already doing this piece when Hamilton came out?
No, I saw Hamilton and then I was mad.
Oh, and so that made you mad enough to do the...
Yeah. So then I researched Elizabeth, researched her all the way back, like what really was going on. And I don't think Angelica and he were having an affair. I really don't think so.
Okay.
And so then I learned what seems like a fuller truth.
Right.
About what was going on, and then I offered it up, and that was really fun. There was a couple of years there I was doing that a lot because everybody would see Hamilton, and then they'd want to hear from Elizabeth Hamilton, and I was able to sort of open up the aperture of the story a little bit further. Let's go a little further here. He's only got much time. He's got music and dancing he's got to fit in.
Right.
But there's a lot more here.
Right.
So, and she was an extraordinary woman.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She also burnt all those letters.
She did.
So there's a lot of half-truths that we'll never know.
Yeah. She didn't want people to know.
So something must have been going on, don't you think?
I think that...
All right, so here's the thing. All right, so my parents divorced when I was 6, and I kept every single letter that my dad wrote. Birthdays, Christmases, all those kinds of things. And then he and I can't remember how old we were, we had a massive falling out. And I went into the back garden and I burnt every single letter that he sent to me because I was so mad at him. Now, do you think that might have been because she was so mad, or do you think she was hiding things? Or it could have been either?
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think that it's both, right? I think that it's both, because when you read what is existing, their vows their falling in love was an idealized state. And so when he was pretty quickly unable to keep his pants zipped, it really polluted her whole understanding of, is true love possible? And she'd seen her mother and father do it. Her mother and father did it. They had a long-term true love. So I think that was pretty painful for Elizabeth.
Imagine it rocked her world.
Yeah.
I mean, to think that she had true love and then find out that that's not the case.
Absolutely. So I think she went about finding a way to forgive him for his foibles because of the gifts that he was bringing to America. I think she sacrificed her own heart for America.
Because she continued his legacy, right?
She totally did.
She fought so hard.
Totally did. She totally did.
A woman scorned like that wouldn't normally do something like that.
Yeah, I
would think.
Definitely heroic.
She did not cut his clothes off and throw them out of the bedroom window.
No. She did not. And she learned brutally when he exposed himself publicly. So I think the way she stood by with the pamphlet, brutal. So she had no illusions that everything they wrote to each other was going to be picked over by the vultures. So I'm pretty sure she burnt it for that.
Wow.
Like, you don't get to know. You don't get to know. You don't deserve to know.
Right. Wow.
I'm sorry.
She's an interesting character.
Had that moment in your life burning those letters, Simon. That's a big moment.
But it was just the way that it was, and my dad and I are great friends now, and so it's all mended. My dad's great. He's awesome. He's an idiot like me.
Right. Oh my God. Right.
Don't fall far from the tree.
Right. And but at 6, we can't even begin to function with the ambiguities of the world.
So another one of the characters that you do is Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
So how do you portray that character? Is that through a narrator as well?
That one is through Watson. It's written through Watson. So I put on pants and a shirt. I keep as true to it as possible. So I do it as Watson. So, I grew up with boys. I'm pretty comfortable with masculine. I don't, so the only thing I do to it, with literary stuff, you have to just trim away everything that can't go through the ear, right? So, you can't take a paragraph and chunk it through the ear. It's just it won't fit. It trims so that it can go whoosh into the ear, into the brain. So I did that. But I created an arc. I'm always looking for the arc, which is some character changes or some community changes, or, there's something changes. How the story begins, ends different. So I allow Watson to get a little more personal about Sherlock, because he says this is his favorite case, the one he can't forget. So I do just a little poking there of why can't Watson forget this case? And then we find out that it's because he sees Sherlock's humanity for the first time.
Yeah, because he's not known for his humanitarian.
No,
issues.
He's not. He's perfect and brisk and
cold almost.
Yeah. So then that makes it. Then the listeners, that really engages the listeners. Then they don't sort of check out. Oh, it's a radio play. Okay, who did it?
Yeah.
And they're also engaged on a human level too. What's going on with Sherlock Holmes?
Right.
They feel like they're going to get inside a little bit of a mystery of him, and then that makes it more engaging.
Have you seen Enola Holmes yet?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
I had mixed feelings, but I liked it.
I totally fell in love with it.
Yeah.
To be honest, it was light and airy, but it also poked at a lot of different things.
It totally did. And Helena Bonham Carter.
She's always good.
She is always good.
I haven't seen her do anything that's a bit meh at all. She's always been like.
No, right. That's right. No such thing
like
as meh.
Judi Dench.
Yeah, right. No meh. Yeah.
She just doesn't do anything bad.
No, Helen Mirren. No meh.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
But I thought the Sherlock Holmes, forgive me, was a little meh.
He's yes.
Whatever his name is, Clay or whatever.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I like the actor, though, I have to say.
I do like the actor, but I thought he didn't like. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, because like you said, Sherlock Holmes is very cut and dry in the books. He's very cold, and he was too pleasant.
He was, and he missed his speed. Sherlock is always faster than everybody in the room.
Right.
And I didn't get that speed from him, so I didn't fully buy the manic brain.
Right.
That's my only criticism.
You could see him working on it, like picking up flowers and all that kind of stuff.
You could.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. But, if he was at full speed, then maybe Enola wouldn't have found Mum first. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or she might have had a real equal.
Right. That's true.
I wanted her to have a real equal. And her mom was obviously really cool. So
Well, absolutely.
I get it. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes.
No man.
Yes. Yeah, no match for anyone other than herself. She's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
You've likened storytelling to dancing, and I really loved that metaphor that you used, because it really is. You're dancing with words, you're dancing with characters, and you're also dancing with the audience.
Yes.
And when I read that you'd said that, and I was just like, yes, it's like a waltz almost. One of those old big dances.
Yes.
Where your whole body is with a partner, and you dance, and you're swapping partners, and it's not contra dancing. It's bigger than that. It's more
bigger than that. Yeah.
It's softer. It's smoother. It's more foofy.
Yes. I agree.
And yet it's not
100%.
foofy. But, and that's what I loved about that metaphor.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
I think that was about year 7 or 8. You know, I was a story learner. I do have some mentees, and I do kind of say to them, you know, really be patient. Just be patient, because we have to rehearse in public.
Right, we do.
We do. There's no way around it. You have to learn the vulnerability of rehearsing in public. So there's all that struggle with control those first couple of years as a teller. And then all of a sudden control breaks through to dancing.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, I think it was right around year 7 where it was just like, my vulnerability became my ally and not my tension, my anxiety. Vulnerability was anxiety before that. And then after that, it became my ally. And, right, you can just look out at the audience and say, hi.
Yeah.
Shall we dance?
Yeah.
Right? Hold out your arms.
Yes. Who were your mentors other than Rafe? I mean, I'm assuming that Rafe was a mentor to you.
Yes, he was. Rafe Martin, Jim May's open-hearted community building. He just kept bringing in new people. So I was always just able to watch and learn all the people he's bringing around from all over the nation. Janice Del Negro, of course, and Sid Lieberman. Did you ever have the pleasure of hearing any of Sid's work?
Only recorded.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with him and had a conversation with him and emailed with him a couple of times about a story that I wanted to tell, The Wooden Sword. And because I'd only heard it from him at that particular point. And he said, well, yeah, but this is where it came from. And sent me down this road that I had to all right, I'll go.
All right, I'll go do my work.
Yeah, I'll do my work. I'll ask them if I can tell it. And then, okay, I went. Then, it's not from you either. Great. Now I've got to find someone else to ask.
Yeah.
And he was so wonderful and generous, and I was really looking forward to seeing him. And it was actually his death and the death of Diane Walkstein that prompted me to do this, because I wanted to get people like Sid and interview them and find out about their path. Because, you know, when Brother Blue passed away and when Duncan Williamson passed away, they were such different characters. They weren't placed in any box. And so there was a lot written about them, and everybody knew about them and what they were like as people and storytellers. But when Sid died, it felt to me that he left his stories behind, but only those other storytellers who worked with him really knew him.
Yes.
And I felt that, because I had that one contact with him, I wanted to know him, because, in that one comment, I was like, this is a really nice guy. I want to meet this guy, and I can't wait to see him perform on the circuit, and I'm going to go and see him, and I'm going to go and chat with him. And then he had the heart attack, or the complications from the stroke.
Yes.
And I was just like, what the heck?
Yes.
That's not right. That can't happen.
One of his last performances was with us at the Ray Bradbury Storytelling Festival at the Genesee Theater. I'd been trying to feature him for years, and finally it worked out in his schedule.
Nice.
And he was late. And I didn't tell that year, because some years I don't tell because I just had to manage and direct as the artistic director. what are we going to do? Okay, I'm going to tell. So I'm getting a story up, ready to go just in case. And then he comes in with Adrian, and he's just small and withered. And Adrian's like, he insisted on coming. I was like, okay, what do you want us to do, Adrian? And she's like, he insisted on coming. And he was just like, I'm going to do this. And they got the microphone on him. And then he went out on that stage and he sat down in a chair and told Pose the pit and the pendulum. We were just like, oh. And just in that whole, and the efficiency of sickness. Sickness makes you efficient. It's a great teacher. And so he just had this, that auditorium seats 3,000. I think we had 600 in there that night. Mm-hmm. You could have heard a mouse move its tail. I mean, it was like, and then he came off, he was exhausted. But you could see he was like, I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. Amazing.
Because he wasn't old.
No.
Not really.
He was aged by the lupus.
Right.
Yeah, he was aged prematurely by the lupus.
So, yeah, so I,
Yes, it's
Sid Lieberman to thank for this
podcast. Sid's precision. And then, of course, Brother Blue.
Did you get to meet Brother Blue?
I did. And he, of course, was, I believe he was a psychic, an intuitive psychic. He could just read people. He was one of those magic people.
Yeah.
And so I saw him that first weekend with Rafe, and then followed him. And he would just kind of, look at me and his Brother Blue, and I just felt like, okay, I belong. I can do this. I'm a butterfly blue. I'm a butterfly blue. So, and Diane Wolkstein is the other one you mentioned. Diane, we had a few conversations, but mostly I read her what she was writing.
Okay.
And then we were in a long form festival together, and we had a long conversation about long form that weekend. But her mind was amazing. She was a collector.
Okay.
She was a collector. Yeah, she just wouldn't stop till she had it. She'd just keep, right? And then she's translating the Sumerian tablets.
I know, right?
Oh, can I touch you who have touched the tablets? Oh, Lord in heaven.
I know, I just like to see them.
Oh, my God.
So you don't tell Gilgamesh, though, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Gilgamesh and Inanna and Gilgamesh are the only two Sumerians I do. Yeah. I had to do Gilgamesh at a peace festival for tents full of fourth or fifth graders. I mean, I just stood there, Simon, as they were filling the tents. I couldn't sleep the night before, like, how? And then I
do it for sixth graders.
Oh, well, see, it's an adventure story. It's totally an adventure story. They totally get it.
Oh, yeah. But there's a lot more to it than that, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just an adventure story.
No, I mean for them, though. That's the doorway in.
They're going to go fight the monster. Cool. They're going to fight each other and knock the walls of the city down. Cool.
Wow.
What? They just ripped the bull apart? No way.
Yeah.
Ishtar. We don't care about Ishtar.
No, but then it's in. The images are so strong, and it's in, and the sounds of the tent, all those things are memory hooks.
Yeah.
That punches it into your psyche, the smell, all that. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like being a kid and hearing that story, and then one day walking into your wedding tent, and all of a sudden Gilgamesh comes back to you. Wait, what? What's going on here? Why am I remembering Gilgamesh? So if you So you mentor people. You said that, right? You mentor people.
I do.
And who are these people that you mentor?
Right now, I have an actress who has been passionately driven through her calling to be a musical theater person, and COVID. So she's just 20, and she's home, and
try not to go insane.
Right. And so we're gently detoxing her from the pollution of Broadway.
Yes.
Right. It's Broadway or LA. That's it. Anything other than that, you are a failure.
But Chicago is such a cool place.
It's a great place. She's going to be fine.
They made a musical all about it.
Yeah, exactly. So she's better. She's better again. She's like, I just love it. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to define whether I'm successful or not.
Right.
It's
up to you.
Just do it. So we're going to, our next task is to figure out what story she's going to tell, or what character we're going to kind of figure it out.
That's really interesting, because I never really thought about, if you wanted to be an actor, you have to be in one place or another.
That's it. Everything else
because in England, which is my compass is, or it will probably always be the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are all these different places where there are these wonderful theatres that you can go and perform, and the repertory companies scattered throughout the country where you can go and learn your chops. And so I grew up with this whole idea that you can do theatre anywhere and anywhere that you want. You just come up with an idea and do it. And you might not get rich doing that.
Yeah.
But you'll spend a summer in, never having to buy a pint at all.
Yeah. That's right.
Or a meal. And the experience that you get from putting on these productions every single night. I mean, do you have anything like that over here?
No.
Theatres, but like that kind of mentality.
I think that the Chicago community has done a great job in building a lot of opportunities for the blue-collar performer. Mm-hmm. But it is the pressure of a blue-collar performer with the cost of living in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's really brutal.
I can't imagine it's cheap living there.
Yeah. So there's still when you're in Chicago, someday I'll be on Broadway and it'll all be worth it. So there's still this North Pole of Broadway and this Southern Hemisphere of LA, and anything other than that is sort of like, well, have you done anything? You've been on Broadway? Yeah, I've been working, self-supporting performer, entertainer, educator, mystical magic maker for my whole life. That's something.
It is.
Have I ever performed on Broadway? It's not my measure.
Right.
My other mentee is actually pure storytelling. She wants to be a storyteller, Carly Landis. She's in college at Prescott, Arizona.
Is she all right in the head?
Yeah, she's crazy like us, Simon.
Yeah.
She's crazy. Right. She's writing stories already, right? She's writing them already. I'm like, oh my gosh, Carly. She's done, she started out with Handless Maiden, because it was big enough for her, right? Yes. And then, and because I've designed her curriculum.
So you didn't give her the three little bears.
No,
you gave
we
her
weren't going to do the three little bears,
instead.
right? And then a myth. So she picked Echo and Narcissus.
That's a great story.
A great story. And then I wanted her to work in the literary and the ghost story. We decided to put literary ghost stories because, as we know, they dance very well together.
They do.
So she just finished Poe's Black Cat.
I told that once and 5 people walked out.
No!
Yes, but I opened with it, which was a bad thing to do.
Oh, yeah, that's not really an opener. You want to earn the trust before you're the sociopath?
And telling it in the first person, hi, my name is Simon. And
No.
I'm in a 12-step program to be electrocuted.
I love our failures. It's really, we really learn is by our failures.
Yes, and I shared it on a blog the day after. Look, everybody else do this.
Yeah.
This was stupid. with your stories that you tell, do you? So we talked a little bit about your process, but we didn't really go deeply into your process. Do you work from a script originally? Do you write your stories down? How do you do that? How do you work? How do you come out with your stuff?
Yeah, I used to, and I do it less now. So I used to have to, I think, to just to sort of, because I was learning structure. Because of course Janice Del Negro break your head about structure, which is a tremendous gift. And I understood structure from my theater degree. I mean, structure. So to really get the structure, I'd work them and write them. And then I would have to learn them and then get out of the written. So I was kind of going backwards.
That's what I do, actually.
Yeah.
I find all the different versions that I can. I write my own version, and then I discard it. Yeah, I think that's right. That's how it works for me. Huh, that's interesting.
And then it starts to break through improvisationally, right? So now I know it so well that I go back, just kind of read it, and then I go, oh no, that doesn't work anymore. And then it becomes always in that folder. On top of the folder is just the scene list.
Yes.
Right. So then all I have to do is pull out the scene list, unless I'm like, I don't remember that dialogue. Go back and read the. And so yeah, I think it's. I like it. I'm recommending it to my students all the time because it's how you develop precision.
Yeah.
If you're always improvising, you won't get that trippingly on the tongue that Shakespeare was so right about.
Right. Unless you do it so often that it's not improvising anymore.
Yeah.
Because what I found with stories is that you'll tell it in a certain way, but then it'll start to recreate itself. And then you end up with this whole different story that really wasn't kind of what you originated. It's like, did I used to tell that story like that? That's really interesting. But then if you listen to that same story 10 years later, there are huge changes. I mean, the stories change all the time.
They do all the time.
And that's what, I love that. And I
me too. I
think that comes back to growing into a story.
Maybe that's why we're so attuned to the dancing as a metaphor. Mm-hmm. Because when you're with a dance partner, they are always changing. If you're with an instrument, it's an instrument. You're changing how you play it, but it's not changing too. But
if you're playing with other musicians, as I'm not a musician, I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
And I know that drummers hate people saying that, but for me, it's pretty much true. But when you're playing with a musician, there is that. I guess it's not the instrument; it's the other person that you're playing with.
Yes,
dancing with the other musician.
That's right.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, I think we hit on it here.
We did.
Yeah.
What's your favorite meal of the day?
My favorite meal? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, spaghetti and meatballs.
There you go. That's nice and easy. Are they Swedish meatballs?
No, they're not. My father was so shut down from his Swedish ancestry. He's 100% Swedish. And he grew up on the west side of Chicago. So he was, why spaghetti? I have no idea. Oh, I do. Anyway, that was once a week was Dad's spaghetti. He must have been working, as I'm swearing, he must have been working some of his stuff out there in the spaghetti pot.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the same recipe. It was in the refrigerator and mumbling and this and adding this and, Cornish hens sometimes and mandarin oranges, just like crazy spaghetti thing. And, but it was his favorite dish and it became mine. Just whenever there was something, Dad would say, I'm going to make you some spaghetti, Meg.
Wow.
I did 23andMe, and I learned, still kind of new, 2 years now.
Yeah.
2 years we're going. His 23andMe showed that my father's Swedish ancestry originated in Sicily.
Really?
There was this whole migration of fishing Sicilians who emigrated up to that south section of Sweden. So it's in the DNA, this like Sicilian. I'm like, spaghetti!
That's totally what it is.
It's totally what it is. Oh my God.
That's so cool.
Oh, that was a great question. I didn't expect that to be an emotional question.
I'm
You probably
sorry.
find that opens people up though,
Sometimes.
because it's food.
Yeah. I usually save it for the end though, so maybe
Yeah.
I should start throwing in at the beginning. People are like, what the heck am I talking about food for?
Yeah.
So where would your favorite place to be to eat that?
God, just the closest distance from the pot.
And okay, so
So the noodles go in and the sauce goes in and the meatballs go in. So the closest place I can get to sit down and start eating it is my favorite place to be to eat spaghetti.
okay, then, so where would your favorite place be to cook that pot?
Oh, to cook that pot?
Well, if you're going to eat it right there, I need to know where you're going to cook it.
Well, you know that I'm going to say in
Chicago.
the not alive party with my dad.
Oh, there you go.
And that just changed me right now saying that out loud, because I can do that now. Every time I make spaghetti, I can invite my dad in my kitchen.
I love
I don't
it.
have to miss him. I can
I'm
invite
looking
him.
forward to that day when my folks go.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that with me and my granddad. He's my dude, and he's on my desk. He goes everywhere with me, and it's should I be doing this?
Yeah.
And he's always there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Passion and calling.
Yeah.
What else do we have in this crazy chaos? Passion and calling.
Right.
This is the great litmus test, right?
Yeah.
What is your
Same
favorite
as yours.
food, Simon?
Well, I do like pizza, but I think my favorite food has to be Indian. I do love good Indian food.
Oh, that's great.
And Mexican food is also one of my favorites.
Yeah, all that
can eat
flavor.
Burritos, yeah, burritos and I'm a vegetarian, so there's no dead animal in it, but like Indian food and Mexican food is just
Yes. No dead animals and lots of flavor.
yes, yeah,
Right?
lots of
Perfect.
flavor. Yeah. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on my podcast with me. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
There's still so much I want to ask you about, actually. I'm going to ask another question, because this is for me, this is one of the reasons that I love your work so much, Megan, is based on all the way that you present your stories. And the way that you present your stories is with that minimal use of word. You're very sparse on your word choices, but your word choices are perfectly pitched.
Oh, thank you.
And the emotional layer that you bring to a story, it's so deep. How do you get to that place when you're working on something?
Thank you for that.
I mean, even that, because I heard you the other night with Janice, and you were telling that story about the coming over from Ireland.
Yeah.
And it was just a snippet of what I imagine is a much larger piece. And from the conversation afterwards, it's based on your family coming over from your Irish roots as opposed to your Swedish roots.
Right.
But the layer of emotion in that story, or the layers of emotion in that story, and the precision of your language is just gorgeous. How do you choose to? How do you do that?
Yeah. I think I'm just really in love with the power of words to create reality. I mean, I can't answer it. That's the deepest answer I can give you. It's the breath of what some people call God. Our words and the way we use them heal people or hinder people. And so for me, I have this sacred feeling, like a sacred duty to the story, to make it as truthful and alive as possible without a whole lot of Megan in it. I really try to get Megan out of the way. But what Megan is my instrument, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I personally experienced a lot of wounding, and I've done a lot of work with my own PTSD. I've done a lot of deep inner life work. So I think I understand people with a great forgiveness. So I think that infuses the stories. So I don't tend to have good guys and bad guys. I tend to have people caught up in powers that they can't quite see yet. And sometimes you have to decide whether the audience sees it or not, or, there's
Right.
there's so many layers going on.
Sometimes that comes in the
story.
telling, depending on the audience.
Yes, that's right.
There have been some, I started a story the other day, and I was like, I can't tell this. And then I was like, no, I have to tell this.
Yeah.
It's funny how stories do that to you, isn't it?
Oh my God.
They'll come up and bite you and say, you're going to tell me. Or I'm going to tear you apart. It's like, you tell me apart if I tell it. What are you talking about?
Totally. Oh,
So thanks for doing this. I so appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Wow, what an experience that was. Megan opens the heart. Well, she opened mine for sure. It felt to me that we had known each other forever, but this was really the first time we have properly spoken other than in passing. Check out Megan's website, meganwells.com, and hire her. Megan is Megan. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to check out other episodes, and if you think that I should interview a certain folk and fairy tale, myths and legends storyteller, send me an email. You can find me and my work on Facebook and on my website at Simon Brooks Storyteller. Instagram, Simon M. Brooks. Diamond Scree? Yep, that's me, the English fella and storyteller. A shout out to Chris Jedd for creating, recording and letting me use the wonderful music for my podcast. His band is called Blackpool Mecca. Check them out. You can help keep this podcast alive and support my craft by becoming one of my patrons and paying anything from $1 for an episode you enjoyed to a regular monthly subscription. In return, you get extras, early release, and exclusive content on my work. Patreon.com/Simon Brooks. Thanks to Scott and Robin, Ted, Tatiana, Rachel Ann, Lisa, Chris, Cynthia, Jenny, Merrick, Eleanor, Ralph, Lauren, Hope, Pat, Alicia, Andy, Kristen, Valerie, Jim and Tim. Also special thanks to Barry Mallock and to Kate Dudding, who recently joined. Want your name mentioned? Become part of the gang, become one of my patrons. And if you can't join these wonderful folks, I understand, then please help out and do something that you can do. Take a moment of your time. Just write a review on Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, wherever you found this episode. It won't take long and it helps not just me but others find and enjoy this podcast. Thanks again for being here with me. I know that there are lots of other places that you could be. I appreciate it. Until next time, be healthy, be happy, wear those masks, and share the stories you love. Cheers. Simon out.
It's just a story. Just a story. Yep.